Can you imagine having the water in front of you, but then your enemies behind you with nowhere to go, no escape route? You're stuck between a body of water and a bunch of bodies waiting to capture you. Today we're going to talk about how God used water to rescue his people. You ready? Let's dive in.
Holy Ghost, battling these demons on the regular. Lord, I need the Holy Ghost, devil fighting for my soul, but I ain't letting up. Fill me with the Holy Ghost.
All right, y'all, this one is about to get good. So we're going to come out of the book of Exodus, chapter 14. We're going to start at verse 10. And so that y'all can really understand what's happening, we're going to read all the way through verse 31, all right? And it read, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them. And I will gain glory through Pharaoh and all his army, through his chariots and his horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I gain glory through Pharaoh, his chariots, and his horsemen. Then the angel of God, who has been traveling in front of the Israel army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from the front and stood behind them. Coming between the armies of Egypt and Israel, throughout the night, the cloud brought darkness to the one side and light to the other side. So neither went near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued them, and all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and horsemen followed them into the sea. During the last watch of the night, the Lord looked down from the pillar of fire and cloud at the Egyptian army and threw it into confusion. He jammed the wheels of their chariots so that they had difficulty driving. And the Egyptians said, let's get away from the Israelites. The Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. Then the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea so that the waters may flow back over the Egyptians and their chariots and horsemen. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak, the sea went back to its place. The Egyptians were fleeing towards it, and the Lord swept them into the sea. The water flowed back and covered the chariots and horsemen, the entire army of Pharaoh that had followed the Israelites into the sea. Not one of them survived. But the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground with a wall of water on their right and on their left. That day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the shore. And when the Israelites saw the great power of the Lord displayed against the Egyptians, the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and in Moses, his servant. So if you don't mind, I'd like to paint the picture for you real quick. So in this story, Moses and the Israelites, they were trapped. They were stuck between a body of water and the Egyptians who were trying to capture them again to bring them back to Egypt, to keep them as slaves. They were scared out of their mind. They didn't know if the Egyptians were going to kill them. They didn't know pretty much what was about to happen. And at that moment, right before God did what he did, it felt like they were forgot about. They were forsaken. It felt like God brought them there to die. How many situations in your life did it feel like God brought you there, and then out of nowhere, you can't hear him, you can't see him, you're praying, but you're not getting no answers, and it feel like, dang, God, how did you bring me here to die? Because that's what it feels like, right? Now, this, I ain't gonna lie, this message is for me. It's really for me, but if you can relate to it, more power to you. So Moses and them, their enemies was actual people. But that's not always the case in our life. Sometimes our Egyptians are not actual people, but it could be more of anxiety, depression. It can be a heartbreak. It can be an illness. It can be a host of things other than just people. And what I want to tell you today is God is saying, I'm about to deliver you out of that situation. I know you think you stuck. I know you think this is how it's about to end. But guess what? The Egyptians you see today, after today, you will see no more. God is letting you know he is about to permanently deliver you out of your situation. What you got to do right now is exactly what they did. Because if you read that scripture, they didn't have faith. They stood still. So what I need you to do is I don't need you to try to figure it out right now. I don't need you to try to make it make sense to you, because in this scenario, it didn't make sense. Even to them, it didn't make sense. They like, how are we about to be delivered and rescued when we're stuck between people that's after us and a body of water that we got to get across? How are we about to be delivered? There's nowhere to go. It just didn't make sense. So what I need you to do is not make sense of it right now. I need you to just understand and remember that if God got you there and he brought you there, he's going to rescue you from it. He's going to get you out of it. He's not going to leave you in that situation. And let me go a step further. Even if you brought yourself there, God loves you so much that guess what? He's not going to let you stay there. He's going to get you out of it. So just remember, whatever your Egyptian is, the Egyptians you see today, you will see no more. Stay still and wait on God, and he will be on time, as always. Y'all know my slogan, people. It ain't just a label. It's a lifestyle. And in all you do, keep pushing.
Holy Ghost, Holy